And so for all your information, anything you say beyond this point is being recorded for posterity.
Yes. And oh, and mentioning hot and cold, because we've been doing a lot of these teaching sessions, and I forget which team we've already talked about it, but I don't think with you guys we've talked about culture yet, but we will.
Yeah.
That's a preview for that.
Mm-hmm. And hot and cold is just an analogy. It's a reference point and a way to begin to think about cultures and stuff.
Yes.
There is science to it as well. Why hot and cold? Because I think over time, climate has played has been a major factor in how people groups make life happen and how they solve problems and how they come up with ways of doing things and doing life, depending whether they live in a cold climate or in a warm climate. So yeah, you will know all about that because you guys are the North. We the North, the real we the North. Yeah. All right.
Okay. So we have included, and we are going to look at poverty, because whenever you think of a mission trip, I think that's at the forefront of what's on our mind, and that's what kind of molds our idea and thoughts about why we're going, what's the whole reason why we go, or part of the reason of why we go. And also because as Christians, we have been called to care for the poor. But it's so important for us anyway, Otto and I feel that I think it's necessary to be able to just stop, like pause, and think about this whole concept of poverty. Because I know we all have an idea of what poverty is, but it's important, and not just with this, but in general in our lives, to, as we go about our daily tasks, as we go about doing all that we do, to sometimes stop and say, wait a minute, what, look at things and understand, why do we do what we do? Why do we think the way we do? Why do we define this way? And it's so important to be able to stop and process. So we want to today to stop and look and process and understand this concept of poverty, and not just from a perspective of what we have understood it to be up until now, because based on what we've heard, what we've seen, who we've come into contact with, but also as people of faith, what does that then mean for us as well? So in thinking about this word and the concept poverty, Otto and I'd like to hear what your definition of poverty is. How would you see poverty? How do you define poverty? And it can be based on maybe a reading or something you've come into contact with in your learning at school, or it could be based on whom you've encountered in your life, in the places you have been, who is around you. So if we could, start with whoever'd like to go first and let us know, what do you define? Like when you think of poverty, what comes to your mind? Who'd like to go first?
I'll go first. People with a lower standard of living.
Yes, lower standard. Meaning, in what areas?
Like their homes, what they eat, and what they have access to.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So home, food, and that's a good one. What they have access to. Yeah. Very good.
I don't know if I'm right on this one, but I think yesterday when I was reading up on the
pages of the book we were supposed to read. I remember reading something mentioning like materialism, poverty, and then there was like, I can't remember if I'm right with this one, but I think it was like spiritual poverty or like because it was really connected, right? I mean, spiritually in any way, right? We may feel a certain way, and that can make us feel as I guess we're in that poverty. Yeah.
Yeah. So based on some of the reading that you did, and like if you could define poverty in one word for you, Owen, remind me of your name.
It's Casey.
Sorry, say that again.
Casey.
Wow, I don't know why I can't hear it. I mean, I hear it, but it sounds muffled.
It's Casey.
Oh, Casey, thank you. That's better. Casey, what? Yes. So one word. What would you say? How would you condense it? What would you condense it to?
Like as in like how I would see poverty.
Yeah.
Possibly when you have a need of something, perhaps it could be lacking. So that's like materialism, poverty, I guess.
Right. Lacking. Yep. Lacking things. Great. Thank you, Casey.
You're welcome.
No, we didn't. They let me take that.
Oh, Chris, let's do it.
It's you, Mom.
Here, it's pretty much
Or something.
Yes.
Oh, the pups wanted to see.
No, she's coffee.
Choking on her chicken.
Although I just sent you the poverty wheel if you wanted to add it to the.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
As for me, poverty, reading on the book we were supposed to read, and what I got into kind of opened my eyes. Well, that woman that was, Mary, yeah, and it's not just material poverty, but intellectual poverty.
Uh-huh.
And not being able to finish school and like Casey said, it's lacking
Yeah.
information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like was mentioned too at the beginning, access to certain things that maybe we take for granted. Yeah. Education. For sure.
Plenty of you start to open your eyes and there's more than just education.
Yeah. 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 I'm not sure if it's the microphone, but it's sounding muffled a little there.
I guess I'm close to it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. And as we go around, just say your name so that we remember.
What's that? How's that?
Yeah, that's better.
Set the volume up. You hear me? You hear me better now?
Oh yeah, that's better. Much better. Okay.
You don't know your names?
The next one is my passion.
Matthew, was that Matthew who just spoke? Marte. Okay. Awesome. Who's next?
Natasha.
Yeah.
So your beliefs like on
think poverty is?
And what comes to mind?
Yeah, what comes to mind? Say it in the mic.
Being bored, not having enough food.
Yeah. And who's speaking? I can't see who's speaking.
Natasha.
Okay. Is that Natasha?
Yeah.
Okay. Natasha. Great. So yeah, not having enough food. Definitely is something that would come to mind when we think about poverty.
Yeah.
The ballpark?
Yeah. Better do it.
Hello.
Who's next? Hi. And you are?
Levi. Levi. Levi.
Levi.
Hello.
Hello.
Poverty.
Yeah. What comes to mind? What's the thing that pops in your head?
Less fortunate.
Say that again.
Less fortunate.
Less fortunate. Definitely many people think about that and would define it as that, less fortunate. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Levi. Who's the next?
How about Ainsley?
Ainsley.
Hi.
Hi. I see your name, but not your face.
Yeah, the video part isn't working, but the voice is.
Okay, yes, it is. That's fine. So how would you define poverty? What comes to mind? What is the first thing you think about?
Like the poor people on the streets that don't have anything.
Yeah. Homelessness.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. And then who hasn't shared yet? Oh, is that Odai? No. Odai, is that how you say your name?
Yeah, that's my last name.
Okay. Oh, but your first name?
It's Chris.
Yes. Okay.
Loud here, but it's not loud.
Christopher.
Yeah.
What comes to mind?
So what comes to mind is inequality, I guess, because sometimes people don't treat like low income people the way they should be treated, you know.
Low income. Yeah. Again, this aspect of quality of life with regards to finances.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Chris. And then
Leanne.
Leanne.
Yes.
Hi, Leanne.
Hi. So I guess I could say like my family grew up kind of like in poverty, like not concerning what they're going outside of Canada, but I see poverty as hardworking because my mom had 3 jobs growing up just to try and raise her 3 children and was still struggling.
Wow.
That's how I see it.
Yeah. Wow. Hardworking. That really is a great perspective and a unique perspective. It's amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Leanne. Is that everyone except now Sarah?
Didn't know if you needed me to answer. All right.
Can I share a story?
Yes.
So many of you guys know that I was born in Cuba, right? Like half a century ago. Yeah, last century. I was born in Cuba, which is an island near Dominican Republic, and I grew up in a Christian home. My parents were young pastors, and Cuba was a communist. Well, Cuba still is considered a communist country. And back then it was very in a season of persecution and making life very difficult for Christians and pastors. So I grew up as a minority in the culture and in the country that I was born. And so on top of that, there was poverty. But I never knew I was poor until I came to Canada. Like I was like super happy in Cuba. I thought, you know, I would compare myself to others, and you know, I always could see some things that I had that I enjoyed and I appreciated that maybe others didn't. And so, as well as I could tell that there were definitely people also, you know, had privileges, even in Cuba, which is supposed to, they boast about a socialist communist system where everybody's equal and sort of like equally poor, but even not totally. The people who were in the army, the people that were in the Communist Party, they had access to things, and they had you know, privileges that they would you know, taunt and go around. But my point is that so a very practical thing. I remember just having to go with my grandmother to a restaurant and go shopping and ordering. We could each order 2 sandwiches, and we would line up because I would get to buy 2 sandwiches and she would get to buy 2 sandwiches. But we would go, and as a kid, I remember going to the restaurant with my grandma and then buying the sandwiches, and they were to go. And then I go, oh, we're going home. And then we would get home, and then my grandma would take away my 2 sandwiches, and she would go and strip them down. So she would deconstruct the sandwiches, and she would take the cheese to make like a cheese omelet. She would take the ham to do something with the ham, and she would, you know, kind of readdress the bread somehow, and then we would sit down to a meal with everybody. And I thought that was normal, and that was okay. That's kind of weird and cool, whatever. And it was great how my grandma would multiply 4 sandwiches to become a meal for our whole family. But we prayed, and no one was going like, oh no, I can't have the full sandwich. We'd be laughing, telling jokes, you know, about the day, whatever, and enjoying the meal. I remember the first time I came to Canada, we went to a Swiss chalet. Do you guys have Swiss chalet up in the north? So Swiss chalet, my dad still to this day loves Swiss chalet. But I remember the first time, and they said, okay, order. And so I was, by this point, I was about 13, 14 years old here in Canada. And I was thinking, okay, what's the smallest part? I know, you know, you can order chicken wings, but there's no way you just have 1 chicken wing, right? They're always like 6 or 8, right? And by the pound. And the smallest kind of part of a chicken is like a quarter. And I thought, oh my goodness, the smallest portion of a chicken that someone orders here is a quarter of a chicken. And I remember counting in my head all the people that lived in my house. And then usually there was always somebody over for a meal. And I go like, so what was that, an eighth of a chicken? Like, how did I partake of a chicken dinner and I didn't get not even a quarter? You know, so I go like, oh wow, I guess that was poverty, but I didn't even know it. So I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe you can't even relate, but for me was that, you know, we would enjoy a chicken dinner, but there was not a quarter of a chicken on my plate. Anybody relates to that or not? But you get it? So sometimes poverty is I don't know if you say poverty is in the eye of the beholder, or poverty is.
Well, that's a great thing to our next thing. It's a matter of perspective, right? It's from which side of which angle you're looking at it from which side you're looking at it from. And that example of that Otto was just sharing, it can be seen in many different ways, and in ways that maybe we would have never thought about, and especially because of our experience here in North America. So there's a video we'd like to show you right now, and I don't know if you probably haven't seen it yet, because I think I had mentioned, I sent it to Sarah that said we were going to look at it together. So this video clip, it's a short clip of someone named Trevor Noah. Has anyone heard of Trevor Noah?
Yeah, we watched the video.
Oh, you saw the video. Okay.
Should we watch it again or no?
Did you all see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's fine. We don't need to see it again.
All right. What did you think?
What did you think? When it comes to looking, talking about poverty and this aspect of perspective, what did you think?
Liz, if you want to play it, we do have one person that hasn't seen it.
Oh, okay.
Is everybody okay with watching it again?
Yeah.
All right. See, that's not communist or socialist. That's like democracy. Whatever. All right, here we go again. Oh,
Ainsley, did you watch the video?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
You hear it? Can you hear it?
No.
I think it's like in like this.
give me thumbs up or down.
Otto, can you hear it?
Yeah.
Oh, no, we can't hear it.
At all? No audio?
No, it's not even playing properly.
Oh. What can we do? So, but do you see the visual, but you don't see you don't hear the audio?
Can you restart it again?
Yeah, let me try that.
It looks like the audio is off, Otto.
No, I have both the audio and the video here.
No, here on the screen of the video, you have to click audio off. I mean, it's on. It's right now on mute.
Which one? Mine?
What I see on the screen, when you look down to the bottom bar, it's muted.
No, look. Do you see it?
I don't see it anymore now. There's another bar that says share.
Okay.
Share
So
chat.
but can you see Trevor Noah on your screen?
We can see it. It's a problem with the
Okay.
audio.
So I'm gonna play it again, see if anything changes.
It does say
Yes or
mute
no?
off the screen.
Thumbs up or some thumbs down?
No, still can't hear it.
Because I have my speakers high. Sounds crazy, but
I can hear it faintly, like very low.
you literally walk away. It's 100% on my.
And then what would happen is a lot of kids didn't have toys, but it wasn't like a sad thing, like, oh, I don't have toys. It was just like we play with whatever we find. And so the most.
Now I can hear it a little bit better.
1970s.
Can you guys hear it at all?
We only just right now, it just started. We could hear it a tiny bit.
Okay, so I'll try it again. And we'll give it a shot. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, Sarah. Okay, I can't see you, so I need to see your hand with a thumbs up or thumbs down.
You know, we're watching the story about the.
It's still really low.
Which is in Rochester.
No, good.
No, it's okay. It's not working.
Sorry.
All good.
Technology.
So Noah is sharing from his childhood, and basically in Dominican you'll get to see this too. Kids are amazing. Humans have been created with this incredible.
So just because Ainsley hasn't seen it, it's Trevor Noah is a South African young man who grew up in South Africa, and his favorite toy was a brick. And he explains why a brick was a popular thing among children in growing up in the impoverished area of Soweto in South Africa. But what I was thinking is that, is this something that surprised you? Like when you watched this video, those of you who watched it, what did you think? Anyone? Chris, what did you think?
I thought like you didn't need expensive things to have fun. Like you could just have fun with anything.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. What did you think, Levi?
Oh yeah, Levi didn't see it.
Okay, Matthew, Martin.
Anybody?
I have to look at it again. I haven't.
Okay. Yeah, it would be really good to look at it again. I'm just sorry technology is not working today, but it's a real eye-opener. In a society that we have today that's very materialistic, all the advertisements, especially if you look at Saturday morning cartoons, you see what the companies are advertising and selling. And in reality, the majority of children around the world are having fun and loving playing with things that don't even cost any money. So that's one perspective, one side of poverty that's very it's from a different experience than our own. Any other thoughts that you had, those of you who remember watching it and what it was about?
You had asked if we were surprised, but that they said with the brick and be happy with it. And I'm thinking I'm not surprised because when our children get in trouble and you take away their toys or you make them stay by themselves or whatever, they don't have access to what they usually have. They'll find a way to, sorry, my son has said find a way to be annoying. They'll find a way to entertain themselves and they'll be happy with it. It's like when you take away electronics, people find things that they can do to entertain themselves. So I'm not surprised that a brick would become an awesome toy.
Yeah. It's so true, and amazing memories he has of that. Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, Leanne speaking.
Yes.
When I was a child, my finger was good friend.
Your what?
My finger.
Oh.
Index.
Yes.
I would do 2 eyes and a smiley face, and I would feed children.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I pass that on to the children, like my little cousins and stuff.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we have fun with puppets.
Wow. That's probably where the idea of finger puppets came from.
Yeah, I created it.
You must be collecting some amazing royalties.
Amazing. That's awesome.
So in Dominican Republic, you know, we will remind you when we get there. We will want you to be looking and observing and taking it all in, and then often, you know, every day we'll get together at the end of the day and debrief and worship together, and it'll be a great time for you to share. I saw these kids, you know, kind of running around with the wheel, you know, and it's just it could be a tiny tricycle wheel, or it could be a flat bicycle tire, and they'll run around with a stick, and they'll even race each other. They'll create you know, almost like a course, you know, in an open field, and they'll race each other, you know, and whoever, you know, is ahead faster and their wheels still turning wins, you know, and so it's pretty wild. And so yeah,
Yeah, so that's a really part of processing this idea of poverty is realizing that it just we're going to go beyond even looking at it in terms of material things, right? But it just to begin to think about how there's so much that we have that we've been told we need, when in reality we don't need it. So, in talking about the poverty mindset, we know that not all poverty is created equal. And Otto's going to talk about this aspect of, and present to you, this idea of the poverty wheel.
Yeah, so the way I'm going to do this is going to show you, show you here just on the screen. It's not quite a PowerPoint, it's just kind of there. Let me just go to it right now. Hold on. And here we go. Can you see it? There's, in the middle of this wheel, it's total poverty. And on the outside of the wheel, it's adequacy. Can you see that?
Yes.
So then there are all these different spokes that come from the middle or the bottom. It could also be, you can see it as a wheel, or it could be almost like a bucket. And the bottom of the bucket is total poverty, and the top is like an adequacy level, right? And that's when one of the first definitions came up was, someone that's below that adequacy line, right? And obviously here in North America, our adequacy line is way, way higher, and arguably non-sustainable in terms of the whole world, but because we are part of like 20% of the global population, and we have access and consume, a large, if not, greater amounts of resources, you name it, right? But anyway, so adequacy at the top, total poverty at the bottom, if you're looking like a bucket or like a wheel, the out part of the wheel and the hub. So economic, there's a level of adequate economic standards by which you can pay for rent, you can pay for food, you can pay for medicine, you can pay for, being able to have some, entertainment and so forth. Then health, it's an area. Do you have are you physically fit? Are you dealing with some congenital situations? Are you getting over a flu? Did you get a virus? How can you overcome that? So health, it's also an adequate level of health. So right now, I have a bulging lower back issue. I have bulging discs. So my health is not 100%, but I'm functional. I didn't cancel out my meeting today, but I'm having to take care of that. I have to go see physiotherapist. I have to, exercise and do certain things, right, to deal with my health. I don't know how your health is doing, but, I'm grateful for my health. So then there's information skills. We have access to internet, we have computers, we have smart devices.
But just going back to health, how privileged we are here in Canada. I mean, I know that there's a lot of things that could be better and that we complain about, but at least we have access, like was mentioned, I believe that Matthew mentioned that, access to things like OHIP, places we could go when we're hurting or when we're sick. If we need emergency surgery, we don't have to worry about where the money for that is going to come from. So here in Canada, we have all those things available to us in regards to health.
That's right. So then you have social political, the social and political environment. There's an adequacy. You have some some social challenges up in KAP that I've heard about and read about and followed over the years, because you live in close proximity of indigenous vulnerable populations, and there are times where things happen with the environment, because here's the environment. This is another aspect. Flooding happens, and I know that your town and your city has been as recent as last year, flooded, overtaken by over 1,000 indigenous people that were displaced by the flooding and by the different situations that impact their communities, right? So what is that adequacy level? What is that? And so socially, how do you get along with those people? How do you relate to those people? Politically, well, we have a system. We have elections. We have civil servants that we vote, that we hold accountable. So all those systems, what is the adequacy level? And then we have the spiritual and religious aspect as well. Are people completely atheist? Are people animistic? They believe that there's spirits everywhere. The spirit of the rock, the spirit of the tree. Do they believe in one God? Do they believe in many gods? And so those are some of the big chunks that can then be subdivided, but it represents, when all these levels are not met. So, you are spiritually or religiously bankrupt, and something breaks in your health, and you have no faith or no, or no social support system, and then, a natural disaster breaks out, you're powerless and you are, desolate and you are desperate. So this is to help us understand how that works. All the different things that help us, build a life that is sustainable, that is adequate. And so, United Nations and governments and even our own country, that's how they determine, the poverty line. Do you live above the poverty line? Do you live below the poverty line? And so that line also dictates whether you have access to, social assistance, if you become unemployed, and so forth and so on. So I hope that can help us.
Mm-hmm. Can you mention environmental? You didn't say anything.
I did. I even used it in terms of KAP, how the flooding up in the north sometimes displaces, a people group like indigenous people, and then that creates a social tension in KAP. I think that you guys are to be commended as a town. I don't know, you guys are close by and living in it, but at least you are, from what I heard, I mean, you as a church and you as people of KAP, I think are amazing ambassadors of God's heart and God's love, and even that your political authorities up there look to you to partner with you in how to respond to things like that. So that's like, woo-hoo-hoo, yay, we're being God's people, not just in the four walls of the church, but we are aware of our world, caring enough for it, and just being attentive and willing to be part of the solution, and not just say, oh, the world is broken, the world is bad. That's being salt and light. So
yeah.
Can I hear some comeback on that?
Any questions? Any thoughts?
All right.
Did someone say something? I thought I heard something. Okay, so we'll let that sink in as you think about that. Did that make sense? Anybody have any questions or something they'd like to clarify? Okay, so we want to tie that in, you know, having presented some of those aspects of poverty. We want to tie it into the reading that we gave you, and tie it into the biblical framework of poverty, because the Bible talks about some of the things that we're looking at as to help us understand and to make sense of why there is poverty, and what is it that maybe we haven't even stopped to think about that is affecting some of the things. So, for example, one of you mentioned homelessness, right? So it is so easy for us as human beings to look at someone who is homeless and judge them. And maybe there are a few who understand the very complicated, deep-seated reasoning for why people are homeless. It's not a simple answer, but there's a lot of people who would say, what's the matter with that person? They live in Canada. They have access to so many things. Why are they homeless? And we tend to judge that way. So that's only one aspect of it. But in what you read, it talks about this aspect of broken relationships. And so I don't know, Otto, if did you want to try playing that video? Because if we couldn't play the
I
Trevor, no, I don't know.
I can show you the picture. I mean, I have the picture open of God.
Okay. Do you think we might be able to do the Right Now Media?
Okay,
video?
we can give it a shot. Let's see.
It's a 3-minute video. See if it works.
All right. Let's see.
Oh, it's just the sound. The sound doesn't come through.
The back?
Otto, do you hear the sound in your headphone? Through your earbuds?
Do you hear it, Otto?
Yeah.
Put your earbud to the mic.
Maybe if you put your earbuds to the microphone.
Well, when I put the
earbuds to the mic of the computer.
Like once I plug this in, my mic is here.
Oh, the mic is on.
Take your left ear and put it in the right mic.
They're saying to put one of your earbuds close to the mic.
But if I plug it in, it goes internally.
You're not plugged in right now?
No.
Oh. Well, try it.
If I plug in, maybe do that. Does that help?
The one from which the other three flow.
We can hear it more. Put the volume all the way up.
It's all the way up.
You're made to love one another, know one another, and encourage one another to follow God's calling in the relationship with creation. God created us to be stewards, end the world, and sustain ourselves. But
better now.
Sin entered the world, and all four relationships were broken. Our intimacy with God.
Can you hear it or no?
I can't.
Our relationship with self.
No, I'm talking about
Of shame.
KAP group. Can you hear it?
From community to conflict.
Like a whisper.
Oh, like a whisper.
For work to toilsome.
This is visual. It's very, very visual.
Effects of these broken relationships.
Oh, that's too bad. Anyway, we could show the other wheel that goes on.
Same across the world. But we all share the same desperate need for Christ, who offers hope that what is broken, both inside us and around us, will be restored. Yes, sometimes we do need to provide food to people, but poverty alleviation is so much more than that. It involves reconciling the broken relationships at the root of poverty. It means taking the hungry person by the hand and saying, I'm hungry too, but I've found the bread of life. He can provide the lasting help that you and I both need. Until our view of poverty changes, any help we offer is likely to do more harm.
So, if you guys have access to Right Now Media, I don't know if you do, there's a lot of great videos that talk about poverty, and this was just a little bit of it, of what they have there. But if you bring out the visual of that one, it helps us to understand a bit better. So what you read, or that reading that I gave you as homework, is actually condensed in this visual here that we have. So you see, this is you in the center. All of us, each individual person in the middle there. And what has happened from the fall, from when Adam and Eve, you know, we know the Adam and Eve story, but it's a lot more complicated than just, you know, what we've known about the story and what we hear over and over. But it's impacted, we can see here how it's impacted us right to the present day, because of this brokenness. We are all broken. We are all in need of God. And so our lives revolve around, you know, what you see here in terms of economic system, social system, religious system, political system, what we were just looking at in terms of the poverty wheel. So we take what Otto just explained, and we can now place it in this framework to help us understand why there is poverty. And it's not a simple, it can't be a simple Band-Aid solution. And that's because there's so much brokenness in terms of these areas. So you have our broken, our relationship that exists between us and the rest of creation. You know, when God created us and when God created this world, there was a perfect plan that he had for how we would relate to creation, how we would relate to others, and how we would relate to ourselves. But because of the fall, because of sin, all the relationship with these things here are broken. So we have issues with our economic system, where there's so much inequality. There is, the economic system is broken in so many ways. When you look at people politically, what's happening on the political realm, that is affecting the economy. When you even bring it down to closer to everyday life, why is it that women are still struggling to get equal pay with men? You know, when you think of how hard it is for a woman, Leanne, as you shared, to be able to support her family, and your mom would have needed 3 jobs. There's this also this aspect of our economy and it being broken, and your mom probably not getting paid what was worth her job. So that's broken. And you know, we have this whole issue here in the area of creation and the environment, global warming, and how we as human beings are treating the earth, and the repercussions and consequences of that. We were created in God's image, for us to not only realize and understand how much God loves us, how much we are loved and valued, but there's this aspect of how it's just hard for us to even get along in relationships, because that perfect love and the way that God created us to function is broken. For us being able to receive love, and that love that God, that, you know, when the Bible talks about how God is love, and how he sees us through the eyes of love, our ability to be able to receive that love and to give it to others is broken. So we have issues, you know, in our dealings with others. And then with ourselves, I mean, how we are valued and seen by God is so hard for us to see. It's so hard for us to accept, because society tells us otherwise, because there's so much going on that we compare ourselves to. There's our broken upbringing, childhood traumas. We've all been impacted by that. So that has affected and has broken our relationship with self. When we begin to look at poverty in this way, we understand that it's a lot more than just economic. It's a lot more than just lacking things and not having things, material things. It's this whole cycle that we have here that happens and continues to happen because of these broken relationships. But what in this video was saying and showing is that one thing we all have in common is our need for Jesus. Like, Jesus came so that these things can be repaired in our lives, and so that he could use us to help repair these things. So as we, you know, venture out into another culture, another country to do missions work, we need to see poverty in a balanced way, and to understand that because we're coming from the West, because we're coming from maybe a place where we have more, does not necessarily mean that we are better, that we in that sense we are equal in who we are and how God sees us, and in our need of God. And we're just his hands and feet, you know, going to be able to share with what we do have here, but with that posture, with that attitude of recognizing that that we do this because of our love for God and our love for people, as we're learning to love people, as his word says, but recognizing that we're all poor and that we need him.
Yeah.
So,
and that we're poor in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing I would add is why this is important for us to go through this process, to think about these things, to wrestle with the tension of these things, is that if we want to be able to help Dominican people, if we want to be able to relate well with Dominican youth as we come, we don't have the luxury of a long time. We don't have the luxury of being able to have lots of time to be able to discover these things. So we do this preparation because in order to help them well without hurting them and hurting ourselves, we need to have these things clear for us. When a North American privileged person, affluent person, in relation to a Dominican person comes to visit and bringing things and coming to do things, if we don't come with the right heart attitude, if we don't come with the right framework, then we just perpetuate the Dominican saying we're poor, we're the developing world, we are helpless, only others can help us, right? And then us, we hurt ourselves by thinking, oh my gosh, We are like little gods. We're God's perfect, beautiful, privileged people. And we get to go around the world to do these things. No, you are part of God's body and you have access to some things. And there's other parts of God's body in the world who have access to other things. And so we need to kind of process that so that we can truly approach and connect and learn and share and serve alongside understanding who we are, where we come from, but who we belong to, which is Jesus, that we're part of God's family in the world, and that we're really after is building his kingdom. That's why you are a church up in KAP. That's why I'm the church down here in Waterloo. And that's why they're the church down in Dominican Republic. And so we deal with what God gives us. Life is not fair. The world is not just. We believe and we proclaim that one day there will be peace on the world. One day there will be justice in the world. And that's when Jesus will be King of Kings and Lord of Lords. But in the meantime, that joy, that peace, that justice can be carried by us as being agents of that kingdom, of that truth, and not waiting for the world to change, but being a world changer in my family, in my relationships, in my community, in my city, and around the world alongside God's family. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Somewhat? All right. So that's why it's important for us to think about that. And that's why it informs the way we do many things and how we go about many of these things.
Yeah. Any questions? Thoughts? So we know what you're processing. Give us a clue, a hint. Is there something new? Is there something new that you've learned here that you hadn't thought of before?
I never really thought of relationships as being a part of poverty.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because you can, for example, here's an example of something that probably would seem so opposite is how can a rich person be poor? Is that possible? And so you could have someone with a lot of money, but not enjoying the fruit of that, having no home life, having a poor home life, but having lots of money.
Yeah. Well,
that's poverty.
You can be a pimp, you can be a mobster and have lots of money, but have totally broken morality, totally broken social system, and legal. Like, I mean, what's the point of that? But it obviously, that's who you're serving. You're serving mammon, the spirit of this world. You're serving riches, and that's what you're after, right?
But that's poverty. That's total poverty.
Poverty. You can, or you can be, the CEO of a large corporation and manage millions of dollars, but you can be on your third or your fourth marriage, and you're relationally poor because obviously your family was not a priority or your wife was not a priority, and at the end of the day, you retired, and what kind of family do you have? What kind of relationship do you have? See, when Jesus called the first group of disciples, he said, "Hey, come follow me. You guys are fishermen. I mean, you guys are fishing fish, but I will make you fishers of men." And so Jesus wasn't saying, leave your business and come follow me. He just was saying, you know what? It's not about the fish. And selling fish is about people. You know, you're going to have to make money somehow to, you know, pay for your food and buy a shelter where you live. And, you know, God gives us each different assignments, different talents, you know. So, but it's about people. It's all about people. God's heart is for people knowing that his kingdom, that the good news of the gospel are available for people. People don't have to live in bondage. People don't have to live under the burden of guilt and shame and sin. They can be set free by the power of the gospel, and they can be part of a kingdom that is not of this world, and has, it's not religion. It's not about, you know, religion. It's about a relationship with God. The right relationship with God will give us a right perspective and view of ourselves, not, you know, pride, but just humility, knowing exactly who you are, what you're about, and then be able to love your neighbor as yourself, and then accept the responsibility that you have to steward the world and your life. And so, you know, it's a lifelong process following Jesus and obeying Jesus. And there's no better life. That is what the abundant life that Jesus came to give us. The enemy came to steal, you know, kill and destroy. Jesus says, I have come to give you life and life abundantly. So we already have life, but how are we living that life abundantly? So it begins by you understanding what poverty is. It's not about the money. Money is important. Money is not evil, but it's understanding that money is to serve God's dream, God's vision for your life, right? And having that clear, right?
Yeah.
And that works in Canada, in Kapuskasings, or in Dominican Republic.
That's right, anywhere. So any other thoughts? What else was new to you in this understanding, in this definition of poverty? So that was that Matthew who shared about relationships? That was surprising? Was that Matthew?
That was Braxton.
Braxton? Okay, Braxton. Yes, awesome. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
So I want to, if interrupt me if the thoughts come, but I want to, so a practical way of how this looks when we go down. So some of you are involved in collecting, say, you know, the dress gowns and things like that. This came as in conversation with Sarah. I guess you guys have like a Cinderella's closet up there in your community. And so, yeah, the same thing is, it's not called Cinderella's Closet down there, but they have a girls club at Sandra's community in Aguas Negras. And there's also a girls program in Sosua with Dario and Rebecca, some other leaders as well. So when we, you know, it's great that we can collect extra gowns and take them down, but it's awesome that you already have something like that you do in your community. But if we were working with another team, it'd probably be harder for us, because they probably would want to parade down the community and hand out these dresses to girls, you know, like, who needs a dress? And the girls would run out and start ripping the dresses out of our hands. And you know, maybe you know, so we don't hand out stuff ourselves. So we realize, oh, here's a community program, just like we have a community program here at home. So we're not going to be handing this out to girls who need gowns. No, we're going to come alongside a church, come alongside a community leader who is day in, day out, week to week, loving those people, praying for those people. And instead of us just, you know, parachuting in and saying, hey, here we are, we got beautiful gowns for you, Jesus loves you. No, we just come alongside those national leaders and we say, hey guys, that's amazing what you're doing. You know, we are the family, we're family, you know, you're our brothers and sisters. So here are some gowns for you to continue showing God's love, preaching God's love, you know, being a part of all these young ladies' lives and rescue them from the lies of the enemy, right? So that's the difference. I don't know if you get to see that. We could come parachute in and, you know, throw out gowns, give away gowns, and we feel like, whoo, wow, we're so amazing. Or we can come alongside the local church and say, and the local leaders and the national people who are there, and they say, hey, we're here for you and with you for the world. Just like we need you guys to pray for us as we continue doing ministry back in Canada. Because, yeah, we need Jesus just as much as they need Jesus, like the video was saying at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yes.
Can I just share for a second, Autumn?
Only brings the glory to God.
So, I don't know if you remember this or not, but it goes along with what you're saying, but that's not coming in and just like parachuting and being the heroes. But when we were on the mission trip with you last time, they had set up a barrier to say that we couldn't get into the town unless we gave them money because there was a girl sick in the hospital and they wanted us to support them. And I remember that the people that were in the bus, we were like thinking, oh, okay, we can find some money. We're like looking through our pockets and stuff. And you had said, no, we're not going to give you any money, but if you come with us to this church down here, they're going to take care of you. And then I remember like the outcome of this is that church was able to connect with the family and they could visit them in the hospital or whatever, and they made that connection as opposed to us being the superhero team in the bus that did something. And then
Right.
we would leave and there would be no more connection for that family community. So I think that sort of goes with what you're saying with Cinderella's closet also. The only way that we're really going to be heroes is by supporting people that are staying there after we leave, right?
Absolutely. I forgot about that, Sarah. My
Yeah, thanks for reminding us.
That was crazy. And yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, that's
Wow.
how we do it. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, thanks for sharing that because there's some things that we forget.
Oh my
It's good to
goodness.
remember.
So many stories over the years. But yeah, that was definitely unique.
Yeah.
Hasn't happened again since. But
So
yeah.
yeah, so we have 15 minutes left, and Otto, you were going to talk about Isaiah 61, Luke 4:18.
Sure.
Manifesto of Christ's mission.
Yeah, so I just wanted to just quickly, make reference to, several poverty in scripture. So we, Liz was able to share with you the framework of poverty, seeing poverty not as just economical, but understanding its broken relationships. And, Jesus, in his first public declaration, his own manifesto in his hometown, he quotes, Isaiah 61, right? And it's recorded in Luke chapter 4:18, and so he just he comes and he picks up the scroll of Isaiah, and this is crazy. He turns right to the spot, and then he reads it, and the Lord has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor, right? So it's interesting because the poor are not the focus of influence in any society. The poor are always marginal. The poor are discounted. The poor are sometimes just a statistic that we like to kind of brush off. But Jesus, being not of this world and having a kingdom that's not of this world and having a new way, he was the new way going forward. He was bringing a new way of worshiping God, of relating to one another, and so he says, I've come to proclaim this to the poor. And so throughout Scripture, the poor are present And a lot of the definitions of the poor in the Old Testament and so forth absolutely are related to economic and lack. But also the Bible speaks about spiritual poverty, right? And that dependency, where you know, Jesus taught, blessed are the poor in spirit, right? And so that talks about those who are not arrogant, spiritual arrogance, like, in other words, like religious, you know, hypocrites who were portrayed by the Pharisees. But Jesus said, blessed are those who are poor in spirit, otherwise humble, otherwise dependent. The poor are dependent. I mean, in the Western world, in our North American context, like, we see poverty as a curse. We see poverty as something that is to, you know, like, I don't want to be poor. I just want to be rich. I don't want to depend on anybody or anything. But spiritually, it is considered a blessing to have that humility and that dependency on God. And that's the big difference that we're going to see between Christians in Canada and North America and Christians in Dominican Republic. It doesn't have to be this way. I hope that when you come back from the trip, one of the things that you'll bring back is like, I don't want to be that kind of a cultural Canadian Christian. I want to be a born again, spirit-filled, word, you know, Bible-following Christian that is, even though I am rich economically relative to the rest of the world, I am still completely dependent on God. And my spirit, I depend on God. You know, Liz and I depend on Jesus every day, you know, and you, I bet, also depend on Jesus every day. But sometimes we live in a world that, because we have our fridge is full of food, our wallet, you know, we have money, we have bank accounts, we have insurance, we have all these things that sometimes we don't think so much about God in that way. And you're going to see that Dominicans depend on God every day for everything, for the food of their day. When they thank God for the food of the day, it's not like me or like you, you know, whether you say grace before a meal, you know, from your heart, are you really, really grateful? Are you really, really thankful? But when someone that's needy and depending on God every day, they say grace, they say, thank you, Jesus, for this food, it's a big difference. So I hope that helps us understand and know that Jesus came to do away with poverty. Jesus came to, you know, reconcile all these broken relationships. And he expects us to be agents of this new way and to be agents of reconciliation. As we go to Dominican Republic and as we go into our communities right here in Canada, that is who we are. That is what we are about. And our ministry, NEXO, it's about, yeah, we dream of seeing the world eradicated of poverty, but not just economical poverty, because that's complicated, but poverty in the full sense of broken relationships. And we hope that through our work and through the work that you'll join us in doing in Dominican Republic, we will alleviate and advance God's kingdom in this way. All right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. We like to hear from you guys too, because or else we're just hearing our voice. Ending thoughts from when we first started to now. What will you go away with? What's the one thing you'll go away with this afternoon in terms of your thinking and thoughts on poverty?
Open-minded?
Yes. Open-minded to
everything surrounding us.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you mentioned that too, because it's open-minded to God's thoughts? What is he dropping into your thoughts, into your mind? What is he saying to you about this topic of poverty? And you know, making it relatable to your context as well. Because as we look at these things, it's not just for our trip. Our prayer and our desire and our hope is that you will have learned something that will help you with the rest of your life as well. So what else?
I guess I could share something is poverty is not something that I'm used to seeing personally. I know when I used to live in Sudbury, I was a university student, and when I see a poor person on the side of the streets or something, I get scared. That's the first thing that came to my mind. I was scared of that person.
Yeah.
So what I'm hoping is, as I go on this trip, that when I come back, I could realize, like, or just that aspect could change from not being scared of them, you know? Because I'm sure they're probably more scared than I am being on the side of the streets, but it's just the fear of, like, okay, if I give something, are they going to chase me down or something? Like, what's going to happen? It's not something I'm used to seeing, you know, it's not something you have up here. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I totally can understand that. That's my reaction too. And I know that's okay. God is working with that in us. It's that fear of relating to something that's so totally different than us, than our experience. And I mean, if it's already awkward talking to a stranger, someone who you would see as a normal everyday stranger, imagine someone in that situation too. So I get it. And God's working with that as well, Leanne. So that's awesome. Casey, were you going to say something?
No.
You look like you were ready to say something.
We were hoping.
See, I actually did, my homework. I read the articles. So
Woo!
That's awesome.
we talked about, it was a great talk and stuff, but like I did know what we talked about, and I agree with it. And last night, I could say I changed my view on a lot of things when I was reading up on it. Like I never really thought much of like the spiritual poverty. The reason why there's a lot of poverty is because of these poor connections being like severed because of the fall, and then that did change how I saw a lot of things, and yeah.
Wonderful. Yep, that's great to hear. And so we're going to take that with us on our mission trip and continue to have God work those things out in our hearts.
I guess I have to learn to understand that poverty is more than just like one part, there's several parts to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yes.
the bucket that you showed us.
Yeah. That's amazing. Definitely. It's bigger and a lot more. Mm-hmm. Christopher. What's going on in your mind there?
Well, lots of things. But I don't know what kind of stuck with me today was that you can't really I was just thinking, like, you can't really judge people like that, because when we go to the Dominican and we see like poor people just on the streets, we still have to love them, because Jesus called us to love others, to treat others the way we want to be treated like that. But like, and there's always also like different perspectives. Like, if poverty is always different, they might think that they're rich in a way, but when they go to a different country, like poverty level is different. So you just have to like accept everyone, I guess, for who they really are, and like leave the judging to God or whatever.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, we do. All of us, including me, we need to be less judgmental. Yeah. Because there's a lot more to this, to the story of that person than we know. So definitely. That's great, Christopher. Thank you. All right. 5 minutes left. Anybody else? Any last minute parting words?
Yeah, it's not just, well, my thoughts, I think, not just, yeah, it's not just the people itself, also the culture. When it's something new, you tend to look at it differently. And sometimes it's not like I want to judge, but it's different. So I know for myself, I see something different, I tend to look. Mentally, maybe judge mentally in my head and try to figure out, or sometimes it's just what it is. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. I'm I have a hard time explaining myself. But,
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I see that you are, you know, that you are working through this topic and trying to understand it.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, they don't know. They don't know. They just have to live with it and try to understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just like, I'll just say it. When I saw Chris Hodai's mother, when she first started at church, she was wearing all that clothes, that fruitful clothes, colorful clothes, and necklace. And for me, it's weird. And like, we don't see that around here.
Yeah.
It's for me to kind of get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of find it funny, but
who dresses like that?
Mrs. Hodai.
Oh. now we're talking about culture.
Yeah, that's what I meant by different cultures.
Yeah.
Different views. They have their view in their culture. We have our views in our culture.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's different.
Yeah.
Yes, it's different. And that's the thing, that we tend to judge based on our own culture. And that is great. That is such a great segue into our next topic. Next time we meet, it will be on culture, and we will be talking about those things.
Yeah. And we're going to be talking about culture like this, like Liz is wearing, like, you know, our culture is like lenses that we've received, you know, since we were born. And so during the trip, and as we prepare for the trip, what we want to help you is to be able to know your lenses. Oh, these are my lenses, and you need them. They're your lenses, but you can just, like Liz usually says, you can park them on the top of your head temporarily during the trip and really observe and study and reflect on the observations of, you know, Haitian and Spanish culture in Dominican Republic, and really exercise, become like a student for that week. And so that's where we're going next, you know, in studying culture. But you're right, even culture has, you know, values about poverty. Culture also has, you know, ways of understanding and relating to poverty, to these broken relationships.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Thank you for coming. And Ainsley, are you still there? Oh, you have her, you muted, Otto.
Oh, sorry. Let me unmute Ainsley.
Ainsley, are you there?
Yes.
Thank you for coming. And hope that you got something from today and were able to understand this whole topic of poverty, which is something, it's a beginning.
Can you tell us one takeaway?
Probably that poverty isn't just being poor, it's like more than that.
Yes, that's awesome. Yep, that is a great takeaway. That's the beginning of understanding what poverty is. So
awesome.
So thanks so much. How many of you guys are going to be watching the Super Bowl? Still up there?
There's one person.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat.
Thank you, Liz and Autumn, for coming on and talking to us. I think it's going to be great when we meet up with you and these guys face to face, and they can have like one-on-one conversations. I know they're kind of shy to like talk on the mic and say things to you.
Oh, I know. It'll be nice to hear your voice without you know, having the sound break.
Yeah, trying to break some barriers there, and then we'll get a real team spirit going together.
Right on.
Awesome.
Well, this is awesome. We're building this way, and then we're gonna have an awesome week together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we pray? Anybody pray, or you know, before we part ways today? And
Sarah, you just look at that list of names, and you. Oh, just a second. You want to pray? You just look at your list of names, and you pick somebody, and then you can do it.
do you want to pick a name, Liz? Is that what you said?
No, what did Sarah say?
I just said you go ahead and you look at your list of names and.
Oh, okay, got it. Yes, now I heard.
Shall be able to pray.
Okay, Natasha.
We can't see her. Come on up.
Oh, you're a part of this mission team, Kathy. You can do this. Chosen one. You're the chosen one. She's on her way.
Thank you, Natasha.
Yes.
I said she didn't have a big mic, so you
We're
guys
all
might not
gonna
have
have to pass. So it's your turn. Go.
You're closing.
You have to pray. And Liz has to hear you.
Yeah, give her the mic.
Nah, it's just like we pray together, but you got it.
Yes. You won't even feel the mic. I'm gonna hold the mic.
Look at that.
Come on, now. Just like how you normally talk to a lot.
Now, use your voice.
Pray in French.
Yeah, in French, please.
Oh, en français, we understand.
Let's go. You're supposed to be shy.
Like.
We're going to work on this for next time. When are you guys going to have to rescue Natasha?
Yeah. Remember, we're gonna stretch you. This script is about stretching out of your comfort zone into your growing zone.
Growing zone, but we don't want to stress you either.
Yeah, no stress. Just stretch. Slowly.
Not that I wanted to, but. Well, we thank you, Lord, for Liz and Autumn, this knowledge that they're carrying on to us, and opening up our eyes into poverty or any cultural aspect of any cultural background that we could actually have knowledge upon and be able to use that knowledge to help others. I pray that we all open our eyes and share love, and understand each other.
Mhm.
I also pray that you heal the sick, you feed the poor, as we are going to be servants and going out to help out. I pray that you open our hearts to share the love, open our ears to hear what they have to say, and give our hearts to you, Lord, so that we can fulfill what you want us to do. In your name, pray.
Amen.
Merci.
De te
Mon
bénisse.
frère Martin.
Thank you. I'm a little woozy right now. I'm not used to praying, but
Hey,
That's okay.
the prayer that the Father loves is the prayer that comes from your heart.
Mhm.
With your accent, with your own vocabulary. That is the most beautiful prayer in the eyes, in the ears of God, and in my ears too, is when I hear someone pray exactly like who they are.
Mhm.
All right.
Thank you.
Bless
You're
you
welcome.
guys.
Have a great rest of your day and week.
Adios.
Until next time.
Say adios.
The next time when we see you, it'll be just before our trip in March.
Practice your Spanish. Do some Dora.
Gracias.
Listen to some Despacito.
No, I don't know
no,
that
no,
song.
that.
I don't know the words of that song, but anyway.
Sarah.
Bless you all.
All right, guys. Bless you guys.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Sarah. Good talking to you.
You.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Adios, amigos.
Adios.
All right. Who's going to hang up? I don't want to hang up.
I don't know how to do it.
I would if I knew how.
I know.
I guess I'm the one that does it. So here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Leave meeting. Okay. Bye.
Bye.